Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
I'm Sanat Piadigamage, and I'm a 15-year-old Sri Lankan growing up in the United Arab Emirates. I'm an author, public speaker, trainer, and narrator. I'm the youngest guest author to have been invited to the Sharjah International Book Fair in its 41-year history, and I'm also the youngest narrator of the Sharjah International Narrative Forum. Reading and writing are a lot like the thread and the needle for me. You see, I have quite the collection of books. I also wanted to come up with my own story of sorts, my own words, put them together. So I asked my parents how to get started. They suggested I start writing a diary. Well, slowly, over time, my thoughts began to take form. I started to understand that people's own writing styles was what helped them move on further. So over time, I finally came up with a writing team of my own, writing about the things in our day-to-day lives which I felt needed more attention. So I started off by contributing to local newspapers, local columns, and soon enough in 2018, at the age of 10, I was able to compile my thoughts from over the years into my first publication, which was Thoughts of a 10-year-old. I came to the UAE when I was just around a year old, and since then I've published 4 books. So now, must say, even though I'm 15, I still struggle to understand the world and its inhabitants. So Dubai, I live in the city of Dubai, and it's the world's most cosmopolitan city. So at school and even day-to-day life, at the park, at the grocery store, I've been able to interact with over 100 different nationalities. So growing up and learning in a place where globalization can't be done without, I've been well supported by the local authorities in my endeavors. For example, the Mohammed bin Rashid Tolerance Award, where I was chosen to convey the organization's message on the International Day for Tolerance in 2020. Now, a crucial decade, the term alone, refers to the years leading up to and during the Second World War. 6 years, 1939 to 1945, where the entirety of the future, our present, was sealed. Today, history finds itself present in just about every nook and corner. We still wage wars on the mere basis of accused shortcomings in others, and what we are now beginning to see is the increasing intricacy in the battlefield. So, minds are being dedicated exclusively and entirely to developing weapons of mass destruction. And weapons no longer just includes the bullet or the bomb. We have now come so far we can fight wars with binary digits. We can fight psychological wars now also. So much effort and resources have been put into fighting wars just for temporary gains. So that was what I mainly centered my discussion forum around. And I also pre-launched my fourth book, Lies of Our Mission. So Lies of Our Mission, I wrote with several thoughts in mind actually. It's a work of several years of fascination with history and the developing of the things which are ignored in our day-to-day life team. It's an intense spotlight. My attempt as a 15-year-old to make out loud the importance of figuring out the faces who were once behind masks. I intend to point out the planning and execution that continues to weigh down upon us even today. That struggle, that irresistible struggle for boundless power that has been felt throughout the centuries, thousands of years, as a matter of fact. In World War II, people being forced to live with the ideals of the Third Reich in occupied Europe. And well, different places, different time periods, different people. It's a dilemma that continues to plague us to date. Um, as I mentioned, Lies of Our Mission, I wrote with several thoughts in mind. Lies of Our Mission has actually been to date my most intricate book that's gone through several phases. So at the end, I finally was able to settle on this book being meant for an audience of all ages, in particular for students intending to learn history as part of their higher studies, and it's even been altered in a manner people who just want to learn about the Second World War and expand their own viewpoint on it as a casual read. So one thing I've noticed quite a lot as an extended message is how the past is being frequently dwelled upon and used to manipulate what happens today. Sometimes people use it to justify their very own failures or shortcomings. The past is being shrouded and rewritten. So, another key objective that I focused on when writing this book was to instill the importance in understanding what happened as it happened. So, the cycle the present so far has been continuing to place emphasis on since the early 20th century must be broken if we wish to continue. We must also learn to acknowledge what's been done in the past, though. Take responsibility for the actions of what our ancestors did, not just as individuals, but as nations. Because hypocrisy, unfortunately, still rules supreme. My first book I wrote 4 years ago in 2018, Thoughts of a 10-year-old. It was a collection of thoughts, just as the name said, centered around my understanding of the world back then. I find myself sometimes at odds with my 10-year-old self, while at other times I can't help but agree, thinking that, well, nothing much has changed. So, moving on to my second publication, it was Tolerance for Happiness. It had a particular focus on a single topic. It was my first time I was actually deciding to break down a topic and figure it out as it was. So the book covered tolerance as an agent of sorts to try and build our world for the better. It was also in this book that I finally outlined my thoughts on the human race as a millennia old collective rather than a group of individuals who find themselves working together. We are a single entity. Now, public speaking, I started out small. It started out in after school show and tell sessions when I was around 5 or 6 years old. When my other classmates would take out a paper to read out loud from, and their usual objective show, tell, explain, it was something they just did like they were reciting. They were reciting from. I chose to move on with a different approach. I found myself speaking to my audience of elementary students and the teacher directly. It was here that I began to find myself first engrossed in what it was I was saying. Now, initially, I also saw public speaking a lot like just reading a paper, being done with it. But with this, I found myself expanding to a whole new level. Speak about something that you feel strongly for. No, it's not something that you just have to feel strongly about. Could be anything. Something that you could relate to, even on the smallest of scales. Well, I'm 15. As for the future, the possibilities are endless. So, calling a spade professionally, I'm still pondering on what exactly it is I intend to take up. But writing and public speaking, indeed, I'm going to continue to work upon because motivating and sharing with those around will always be key to me. They have been, and they have been guiding me in the last few years, and I'm sure they'll continue to guide me in the future. In a world where many think that we children are going to create, constitute for in the future, we can now aspire. Now, it's something I hear a lot that one day I'm going to grow up and achieve great things. One day I'm going to be a great writer. One day I'm going to be a great speaker. And most of the time when I hear that, that tends to get me thinking. Great things can be done even today to pave way for even greater things. Now, the final question is only if you're in for the ride.